Hello, I'm John with OpenEye's Technical Support, and today's question is, what are some of the basics I should know about networking? A network can be defined as any number of devices connected using TCP/IP communication. If you have a PC and a modem at home connected to the internet, then that counts as a small network, which is known as a local area network or LAN. With the proper equipment, even a small network like this can include network video. Networks can be standalone, which means there is no access to the internet. To access the internet from inside a network, a router or gateway is necessary to interpret the communication from outside the network. An IP address is the basic method of identification that network devices use to communicate and route information on a network. Each device on a network must have a unique IP address for proper communication. Most local networks use an IP address that begins with 192.168 or with 10. These ranges are reserved for local area networks. External addresses are those IP addresses that are public, meaning that it is the address that your internet service provider has provided for outside communications. Due to the limited number of external IP addresses, most locations have a single external IP address, which is assigned to the router. The router has both an internal and external IP address. The router directs network traffic between the internal network and the internet. When configuring a network device, the field for Default Gateway references the internal IP address of the router, which is usually the same as the other devices on the local area network, with the exception of the last set of digits, which are commonly 1. Devices on a network are defined not only by the IP address, but also by the subnetwork or subnet that they belong to. All IP addresses that belong to the same subnet have common digits at the beginning of their IP address. On most small networks, devices must use the same subnet and a similar IP address, with only the last octet being unique. Since most sites have an external IP address and potential for multiple devices to which a remote user may need to connect, each device can be set up using its own port or ports that are all unique on the local network. This enables the router to send incoming requests to the correct device. There are 65,535 ports, which ensure that any number of devices requiring unique ports should be able to work together on the same network. Port forwarding is the function of a router that allows the router to determine where a remote request should be sent. When a communication request reaches the router forwards the communication onto the device on the local network, which uses the corresponding port. If remote connection over the internet is required, port forwarding will need to be configured on the router. Popular brands such as Netgear or Linksys have an area in their setup called port forwarding. Some other brands may list this function as pinhole or virtual server. DDNS stands for Dynamic Domain Name System and is used to direct a host name or URL to an IP address. By default, most internet service providers will change the external IP address periodically. With DDNS, an unchanging name is used in place of the changing IP address, so that the same information can be used for connection regardless of the current IP address. DVR users can use the free OpenEyeDVR.com DDNS service, and setup instructions are included with each DVR. Ethernet, or network cabling, uses a system called Unshielded Twisted Pair, or UTP. Each Ethernet cable is made up of 4 twisted pairs, which are twisted together inside a single cable jacket. Most current cable meets either Cat5e or Cat6 specifications. When running cable, it is important to keep each run under 295 feet. If a greater distance is required, a repeater or switch can be used to extend the range by an additional 295 feet from each switch. If you'd like to learn how to make your own Ethernet cables, please watch our Making a Network Cable video. Power over Ethernet, or PoE, is a standard for supplying power and a network connection over a single Ethernet cable. The PoE specification is known by its specification number, 802.3 Alpha Foxtrot. The OpenEye CM610, CM710, CM730, and NEVS201 IP devices are all Power over Ethernet compatible. This means that both data and power can be provided on the same Cat5e or Cat6 network cable, reducing installation costs and complexity. OpenEye IP cameras can be powered by any 802.3 Alpha Foxtrot compliant PoE switch or mid-span injector. A newer standard, 802.3 Alpha Tango, is backwards compatible with 802.3 Alpha Foxtrot devices and can also be used to power OpenEye cameras. If multiple switches are used to extend a network's range, then the PoE switch or injector should be used in the last 295-foot run with no other network devices connected between the PoE power source and the camera. Planning and implementing a network for a security deployment can be a daunting task, but with resources such as OpenEye's training videos, FAQs, and our knowledgeable support staff, you can be sure the transition from the world of analog video to IP video will be a smooth one. For information on OpenEye's products and solutions, or to view more helpful video tutorials like the one you're watching now, visit us at openeye.net. From OpenEye, I'm John.